It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. Welcome to the meeting of the panel on Home Affairs. The first item on the agenda is election of deputy chairman. Well, the procedure will be the same as the election procedure for chairman as stated in Appendix 4 of the House Rules. Any nominations? Mr. Alvin Yeung? I nominate Mr. Ray Chan. Seconded by Ms. Claudia Mo. Do you accept, Mr. Chan? I do. Any other nominations? Let me count to 3. 1, 2, 3. If there are no other nominations, I announce that Mr. Ray Chan is elected Deputy Chairman of the panel on Home Affairs. That is quickly over and done with. The second item is information papers issued since the last meeting. There is none. Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will take place on the 10th of February, a Monday between 4:30 and 6:30. There are two items. They are Youth Hostel Scheme, construction works by the Hong Kong Girl Guides Association for the Youth Hostel Project in Jordan, and progress of review of the Building Management Ordinance CAP 344. If there are no questions, they will be the item for discussion next time. The fourth item is Sports and Recreation Facilities Project, Amenity Complex in Area 103, On Shan, pre-construction activities, redevelopment of Kowloon Tsai Swimming Pool Complex, and development of open space at Hoi Fai Road, Tai Kok Tsui. Let me first remind members that this is related to capital works proposal. Under 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest with items under discussion, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. We have with us from the administration Mr. Lau Kong Wah, Secretary for Home Affairs, and a number of assistant secretaries. Apart from Mr. Lau Kong Wah, the Secretary, we also have Principal Assistant Secretary for Home Affairs, Mr. Edward Yu, Principal Assistant Secretary for Home Affairs, Ms. Stella Chang, Assistant Director Ms. Rochelle Lau. Ms. Amy Chan, District Officer of Shatin, and a number of representatives from the Transport Department and Architectural Services Department, as well as the LCSD. Secretary, please take us through the paper. Thank you. I am happy to have the opportunity to come to present to you about this project together with my colleagues from the LCSD, from the HAD, from the ASD, as well as from the HAD. These projects include redevelopment of Kowloon Tsai Swimming Pool Complex, amenity complex in Area 103 of On Shan, as well as development of open space at Tai Kok Tsui, Hoi Fai Road. You'll find in the paper the project cost and details. In the Area 103 On Shan amenity complex, there will be the provision of an indoor heated main pool, a leisure pool, a community hall. This will meet the demand for sports and recreational activities. There will also be a library, so this will also meet the demand for libraries. In relation to the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, there will be a provision of a heated main pool to provide a comfortable environment for swimming during inclement weather. There will also be a new training pool, a provision of a leisure pool, as well as a sunbathing area to meet family recreational needs. The last one is the open space at Tai Kok Tsui. There will be various facilities, including lawn area, landscape area, leisure facilities, jogging track with fitness stations, Tai Chi area, fitness corner, toilets, changing facilities, together with the Hoi Fai Road garden, as well as the Hoi Fai Road promenade. This will provide quality open space for the public. All these three projects are long awaited by the public. Well, it is one of they are 3 of the 26 projects. We hope that we get your support so that this will be considered by the PWSC for early commissioning of the facilities. Thank you. I now ask members to speak. Mr. Vincent Chang, Mr. Ray Chan, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, 4 minutes each. Mr. Christopher Chung as well. Mr. Vincent Chang. First, I'd like to ask about the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool complex. It's been under discussion for a very long time. Members would very much like a heated pool to serve residents in Kowloon City, because there is a lack of similar facilities in the area. I'm aware that a lot of schools in Kowloon City use this pool for competitions. I have a number of questions to ask. If you refer to the paper, the construction period is 4 to 5 years, all the way to 2024, which is quite long. So there is still a lag of a few years. Moores Park is under renovation too. So I'd like to know if there is any overlapping period when the Kowloon City will not have any swimming pools to serve schools for competitions. And I'd like to ask about your consideration. Why do you need to have a complete renovation? I know that for Moores Park there will be additions, as that is the same for the other swimming pool. But how come that when it comes to Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, it sounds more like an overhaul? LCSD, about The Kowloon Tsai swimming pool renovation, well, actually it was commissioned in 1964, so it has a history of over 50 years. A lot of the facilities are quite old. Even with maintenance and repair, there is still a need for renovation because of its age. For Kowloon City area, there is not one pool with a dimension of 50 meters to be used in winter. Current specifications of the swimming pool is not an international standard. We'd like to take the opportunity to change that. We would also like to enhance swimming training facilities. That's the reason. But what about the overlapping period? Will there be a time when there won't be any swimming pools for schools to use in Kowloon City? Where else can they find the facilities? For most park, and it may be a different area from Kowloon Tsai, but they serve the same catchment. So when Moss Park main pool is open for use, well, it's actually started operation in the summer last year. We would like to start the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool renovation when the Moss Park pool is in use. We have already taken that into consideration, hence the proposed schedule. So will there be a time when there is no pool to be used? 4 years for Kowloon Tsai swimming pool. Is it necessary because it is a rather long time?
I'll ask the ASD to give you details on the timing. ASD, please. Turn on the mic, please, for him. The redevelopment involves dismantling the existing swimming pool. We also are considering, actually because the site is within the park, so the works vehicles need to be very careful with them, and we also need to avoid affecting the other facilities too much. Therefore, the work site is big enough only for the redevelopment of the swimming pool. We're not getting access to more area in the garden or the playground for the redevelopment. So that imposes constraints on the work and in the works itself. Besides redeveloping the swimming pool, there's also a slope from the Eveners Road that we need to do enhancement works. Therefore, we have considered the benefits of users of the park, and we need to, in consideration of the constraints, therefore we came up with the time frame. Next one, Ray Chen, Deputy Chairman. On Shan 103 Amenity Complex. That's my question. What my question is about. There'll be a show of office, and there'll be 400 parking spaces, as mentioned in the paper. Can you give me a breakdown on private car parking spaces, percentage of them, and also for the amenity complex, what does it include and not include? And in your policy making process, what factors did you consider? For example, the Sha Tin District Council all along has wanted to have a public market, and in September last year, unanimously last year they approved the motion calling for the establishment of the market, and members also asked whether the Area 103 can incorporate a market. Obviously, it was not included, indeed. But what is the reason? And looking ahead, is there any possibility that other sites can be chosen to include a market? Secretary, 2 questions here. These 2 issues have been much discussed at the district level. District officers and departments have already had good exchanges, interactions with the district councils concerned. So we have incorporated some local views already, but I'll ask the Sha Tin district councillor to give you the details. Their interaction with the district council and also on what grounds did they not incorporate suggestions. And also the latest facilities actually are different from our original plan. She can brief you on that. So district officer, please. Thank you, Chairman and members. On the Area 103 complex, it was put forward to district council twice. As Mr. Chen said, district councillors in Sha Tin supported many of the facilities in the area. They also mentioned having a market there. Whether we want to establish a market in an area, we need to leave it up to the relevant bureau. And the outcome for this case is that in this current complex, there's no market there. As for car parks, the transport department, in relation to this particular site and its scale, it has a certain number of parking spaces prepared. As for what sort of vehicles will be given, how many spaces, we need to ask the transport department for details. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your question. Our initial plan is that we've been to the area and looked at the parking needs, and we have carried out some evaluations. As for the demand, our plan is that we would give a total of 400 parking spaces. You must know that there is a temporary show office with 300 parking spaces right now. Because of the district views, as mentioned by the district officer, we have to look at the supply and demand situation in the nearby area. So therefore, there would be as for how many private vehicles, well, there are 200 private vehicles parked there now. So I think we will need to provide close to 300 parking spaces for private vehicles. And we also look at the need for parking spaces by commercial vehicles. There will be 65 parking spaces reserved for various types of vehicles, like minibuses, light goods vehicles, and so forth. Besides, there should be motorcycle parking spaces. As for the actual details, we will have to wait till the detailed design stage. Chairman, a supplement here. Of course, I know ultimately, I know you decide that there will be no market, but I want to ask about the policy making process, decision-making process. You said the relevant policy bureau made a decision. I'd just like to know from you, what is your justification? Can you give us the reason? If not, please give us an answer in writing. Secretary? Yeah, we can ask the policy bureau and give you a written reply afterwards. Yes, next one, Ma Fung Kwok. Ma Fung Kwok. Yes. On the amenity complex area 103 On Shan, there will be a public library new book center. I'd like to ask you about, looking at the paper, it says that the new book center, there will be an express. It consists of an express station for residents. If you're providing public service, particularly for new books, what is the actual demand there, you think? And why aren't the new books not distributed in various libraries, but be concentrated in a particular place, which is not very convenient to Ma On Shan residents? I don't see it in relation to its location. What is the purpose of having the express service point? And also, now, you are actually concentrating the services in one spot. I understand, but we are talking about public service, so I don't see why there's a need for this particular service. Why don't you turn it into a regional library instead, or district library? That would be even more convenient to the people. Can the government reply? Yes. Assistant Director from LCSD, please. Thank you, Mr. Ma and Chairman. The new book center actually is for the convenience of our acquiring and cataloging staff who will actually distribute books to various libraries. So through our cataloging office, they will do the work, and the new book center has the advantage that it will handle new books at one location. After the cataloging and screening is done, at this book center, the staff concerned can finish the last step for handling new books immediately. So its characteristic is that all the new books will be quickly sent to the express service point for public to borrow. So it serves people around Hong Kong, all of Hong Kong. And we've also incorporated District Council's views, which included that we asked for more activities in libraries. So the New Book Center has docent services and readers education services. So it's up to tell people how actually our staff handle new books. Yes, I totally understand, but my question is why the express service point, the new book express service point, is located in On Shan, but not in a more convenient location. All the activities, like if they are held in Central Library, wouldn't it be better? For new books, you want to provide the new books to the public ASAP, from cataloging and so forth, in the process of distribution to the new libraries. That will only take 1 day the most. So why can't you have an express service point in On Shan? So that's my question. Why don't you just have a district library in On Shan instead, whereas the other activities services can be held at district levels, districts in different areas. If you are asking people to go all the way to On Shan from Tsai to get a new book, that doesn't make sense. So I don't quite get your point. LCSD, please. Let me supplement again. All the new books, it's easy for us to gather all the new books and then do all the screening, checking, and so forth. And in Marshan, we are providing all the popular books, copies of popular books. So that will not affect the launch of new books in other libraries. Sorry, Chairman, she hasn't really answered my question. I agree with the points you made. Of course, you want to handle processing of new books at one location, single location, but why choose On Shan to be the site for the express service point, new book express service point? Okay, Secretary, let me supplement. Mr. Ma was saying that there is to be, there's a new need for storage space for the new books, and Mr. Ma said, well, indeed, in Central Library, there isn't the storage space, so we need to find a new place so as to accommodate all the new books, point one. And secondly, for express service point, why is it located in On Shan? If you look at the map of Hong Kong, On Shan is right in the center. It's really not that remote. So for express service point, it is provides more convenience. So those are two reasons for choosing the area as the site. Okay, you can have a follow-up questions later. Next one, Christopher Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. On the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, follow-up question here. The paper shows that the pool will take up 1.3 hectares in size. Construction cost is about $1.3 billion. At the last Summer Fest panel meeting, we discussed in the Southern District the Tai Kok Tsui swimming pool project, which has an area of 1.6 hectares, compared to the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, is similar in size. So why is it that the construction cost for that is only $357 million, whereas for this one it costs $1.1 billion. $1.1 billion. Even though it has heated swimming pools, indoor swimming pools, but that doesn't justify this heavy construction cost. Does it include any modern technology and high-tech facilities? That's why the construction cost is so much higher. Secretary, ASD, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your question. For the Tai Kok swimming pool with a construction price of $300 million, it only involves converting one swimming pool into heated swimming pool. But whereas for this Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, it involves dismantling of the entire swimming pool and redevelopment of a main heated pool, training pool, and another smaller pool and sunbathing area, ancillary facilities. So the two projects have different scales altogether. And as for the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool redevelopment, the cost of $1.1 billion, ASD actually has made a reference to our two other projects, Tinshui 107 and Kwun Tong swimming pool redevelopment in the past 2 years. So compared to those two projects in recent years, the costs involved are similar. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on in the paper it says that the swimming pool in the winter time, that is from December to March, it will have the annual maintenance period. So during the maintenance period, in that 3-month period, would that be too long? Will that undermine the function of the heated pool? The maintenance period, does it have to be carried out for 3 months every year? If so, that may not be cost effective. Secretary? Or ASD? Yeah, ASD, please. For the 3-month period, I think LCSD also considered that the 3-month pool closure period for maintenance based on the experience for wintertime is suitable. And also I know the LCSD during that 3-month period, they will liaise with the ASD and the electrical and mechanical engineering department staff to check on the state of the pool to ensure that the pools are safe for use and to see if there are any mechanical or electrical faults that need to be followed up on. I don't know whether LCSD has any supplements.
In relation to repair of Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, with the renovation, the main pool will be turned into an indoor one. In winter, will be open for public use. Repair of the indoor pool will be during swimming seasons, but we will try to keep the closure period to a minimum. Normally, it won't be as long as 3 months. Next, Dr. Fernando Zhang. About these projects, whether they are open space or swimming pools, of course, we are concerned about that. There are a number of facilities at the On Shan site, one of which is a swimming pool. I see in your paper some information, and I've also learned from parents that for the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool, there are some facilities that are quite welcomed by those with disabilities. I learned that there will be a ramp constructed. That is very good because in advanced economies, there are similar facilities found in swimming pools. However, I don't see anything similar in the On Shan swimming pool. Swimming pools with ramp is a rare facility. It will be difficult for those who are wheelchair bound to use the swimming pool. Will you include a ramp as a standard specification? Can it be done at the On Shan swimming pool so that those who are mobility impaired in On Shan will be able to use the facility? Let me defer to the ASD about this. I thank Dr. Zhang for the question. The project is yet to start. I heard from Dr. Zhang that a ramp will help those that are disabled. This is a very good idea. We will include this in our design. What about toilet and changing facilities? There is one thing that is close to the heart of disabled people. Very often, parents will have to accompany them. The children may be adults, but still they need parents to be present to help them. If there are no separate and independent toilet and changing facilities, it will be rather awkward. From time to time, I have to accompany my daughter to the toilet to take care of her. If there is no separate facilities, it will be very difficult for me to enter a female toilet or changing facility to take care of her. So I'd like to make sure that there will be sufficient independent and separate changing and toilet facilities for persons with disabilities. Yes, we will definitely take that into account. For newly constructed swimming pools, there will be family changing rooms. Well, for those the pools that you go the tiny pool that you go through before you enter the swimming pool, they are no longer a step down, they are ramp. But what about family facilities? You have to make sure there is sufficient space. We will follow it up with LCSDs. I'd like to, Mr. Shokafai, I'd like to ask about the Kowloon Tsai swimming pool. It says that there will be a indoor swimming pool, there will be a 25 by 25 training pool, there will be a leisure pool, there will be a sunbathing area. Will they all be commissioned at the same time or at different times? LCSD. About the Kowloon Tsai project. The main pool will be heated and it will be open throughout the year. The training pool and the leisure pool will be outdoor. They will be open during swimming season. Well, winter is not a swimming season. From April to October is the swimming season. As far as I understand, that there is a long-standing shortage of lifeguards. I learned from my colleagues that sometimes you can't open all the swimming pools because of the shortage. Do you have sufficient lifeguards or not? What is the percentage of swimming pools that are open? If you're referring to recruitment of civil servant lifeguards, we have sufficient manpower. We don't have any recruitment difficulties. Regarding recruitment of seasonal lifeguards, well, there is a high mobility because we only need them during swimming seasons in highly used facilities. Because of the high mobility, at different times there will be different number of lifeguards at the swimming pools. We have added 80 civil servant lifeguards to replace seasonal posts. These are full-time posts to serve at swimming pools. We continue to recruit lifeguards. We'll use additional ways to achieve our goal. We will also enhance life-saving trainings to enhance the capabilities of lifeguards. Let me ask the question again. In the past year, I have learned from many different people that because of the shortage of lifeguards, many swimming pools are not open. What is the percentage of swimming pools that are not open because of a shortage of lifeguard? I'm not talking about your future plan. I want to know what can't you do. I have first-hand experience. The swimming pool is so packed that at the same time there is another one that is not open. I asked and was told that there was not enough lifeguard. It's widely covered by digital media as well as the press. So can you tell me the level of shortage, or there is no shortage at all? Regarding seasonal lifeguards, there are always changes because there will be people coming and going. I can't give you an exact figure. At different times and in different months, the figure will be different. Can you supply me with the information afterwards? No one swims in winter. I'm talking about swimming season between April and October. Why would you know whether the swimming pools are open or not? I told you about my first-hand experience, and it's also widely covered by the newspapers. You now ask for $1.1 billion for another swimming pool. Do you have sufficient lifeguard? If there is a shortage of lifeguard, you won't be able to open the swimming pool for public use, and you'll be severely criticized. We do have the figure, and I can give you the exact figure after the meeting. There may be changes in the number of lifeguards. We will give you the most updated figure. Mr. Shiu is also concerned that if there are more swimming pools, will there be sufficient manpower? The assistant director was answering exactly that question. We all recognize the problem. Recruitment of civil servant lifeguards, seasonal lifeguards. We also try to tackle the problem at source by providing more life-saving training. So the assistant director has already answered. We have used a multi-pronged approach to increase the number of lifeguards. We'll give you the figure afterwards. Well, one of the reasons is one of the causes because of the low pay. The solution is easy. Just raise the wages. Please supply the information to Mr. Shiu afterwards. Mr. James Toh. I support the open space redevelopment at Hoi Fai Road, Tai Kok Tsui. It's been long awaited by residents, over 10 years. So I hope that it will be completed as soon as possible. Secretary. Yes, indeed, it's taken a very long time, and finally it will commence. So I ask Mr. Toh to support us at the PWSC. Any other questions? Second round, Mr. Vincent Chang. I also want to ask about the open space at Hoi Fai Road, Tai Kok Tsui. I support it because it's been waited for a long time by residents. It says in the paper that it will adopt the concept of diversification. Would there be any changes? I see from the impression that the open space will be that, but there is also that half circle there. What is it? Along Hoi Fai Road, the odor from Yamate Typhoon Shelter is a problem. I see that there will be dry season interceptors. However, there is still the problem of odor. Will the LCSD work with the Marine Department to try to improve the situation? Otherwise, no matter how beautiful the garden is, it will be of no use because of the bad smell. Assistant Director of the LCSD. I thank the member for the question. About the children play area, it is a capital works project. It is not included in the 170 playgrounds in the policy address. It is about a renovation of an existing park. However, in relation to inclusive play equipment that is innovative, of course, we will adopt that element. You will give us more detailed information about the facilities in the PWSC. It won't be the same as the old ones. All new facilities will follow this concept. After the tender exercise, we will talk to the successful contractor to work out the details. We will listen to views. We are aware that the public don't want to see run-of-the-mill design. They also want it to be fun and innovative. What about the smell from the seawater? We will forward the views to relevant departments. We hope that there will be further improvement. We will also forward to them the concerns of the public. Apart from the interceptor, there are also complaints about wrong connection of sewage pipes. Will you also cover that as well? If you discover wrong connections, will that be addressed as well? I'll defer to the ASD.
ASD, please. For this particular project, all the draining of rainwater with the DSD and water supply department, we have discussed the issue with them. And yes, nearby, there could be odor. And we will follow up on the matter with relevant departments to track down on the source of the odor and see what we can do. Hoi Fai next. Thank you. I'd like to ask for the amenity complex in Area 103 On Shan. It's mentioned that there'll be a Public Library's new book center. How much does it cost? Secretary? Assistant Director, please. LCSD. Right now, this is actually the construction stage. For the cost, we don't have it yet. But I may ask the ASD to supplement. ASD, yes, because the construction design hasn't begun, so we don't have the estimate for the cost of the new book center. Mr. Xu. All these works projects are all about money, right? And then, trying to get out support for libraries. Of course, it seems like we should, of course, support them as a livelihood project. But we all know that if you notice that newspaper vendors on the streets, they are about to lose business because nobody buys newspapers. Everyone is reading newspapers online. So libraries will face the same challenge from technology. People would read fewer and fewer books. They read online on their tablet or mobile phone. So, department, with the advancement in technology, in the past we allocated so much resources on libraries and getting people to read books, through the traditional ways. But how are we going to cope with the technology? Changes brought by technology. Assistant Director, yes, we've noted the trend of e-books. So e-resources and e-books are actually being procured. As for physical books, particularly children's books, in the past few years, we've seen that for some subjects, books increase, particularly Chinese picture books for kids. their volumes have increased. So we need to, looking ahead, we need to consider for physical books, we should increase our procurement and also enhance our services in providing them. So the new book center will tie in with our long-term strategy. Children's books. Well, I agree. Many children, they may not have a mobile phone yet at their age, but in your libraries, what percentage of your resources are spent on children's books, middle-aged people, and also elderly readers to cater to them? Assistant Director, every year we will set the targets for procurement and depending on the utilization rate and development of our archives. In the coming year, comparing with 2019, we will procure up to 800,000 books. For Chinese books, for adult books, about 200,000 of them. Children's books, 260,000 of them. On the whole, for the newly acquired books, the percentage would make 76%. That is Chinese books. For adult books and children's books, the ratios, we do have similar comparisons made. The lending rates for children rates are kept at 20 million or so. So that makes up about half of our lent out books. So in our procurement of children's books in the coming year, we want to maintain the rate of 48% for children's books. Can I supplement, Chairman? Just then, Assistant Director, what you said makes sense. Children's books, they don't have a mobile phone yet. And the parents might want the children to lay their hands on books. So therefore, I've been to some of the public libraries. I've seen that you are providing more books for children and infants. So that's a good direction. Allocating resources in the area will be good. But on the other hand, for older readers, well, I don't mean old people, but like teenagers, 15, 16 years old, they are not holding books in their hands much. So they are actually moving towards e-books because of technology. So you need to change from buying physical books in tradition to getting more e-books. You need to change your style fast because when people read on their mobile phone, they won't go to the library and the utilization rate of your books will be low. So you need to, now with the resources, try to step up your effort in trying to get people to use your resources. Okay, follow-up question on Mr. Hsu's suggestion. No other members have questions? If not, then we can basically wrap up discussion on this item. And we just heard from members. Most of them support this item. So we will put forward this project to the PWSC. The next item, preservation of Hong Kong film heritage from the Hong Kong Film Archive. So may I invite the administration to come in? For this item, with us is the Secretary for Home Affairs, and then Ms. Santi Joan Pushan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Home Affairs. Also, Assistant Director of LCSD, Ms. Eve Tam. LCSD's Chief Manager, Film and Cultural Exchange, Ms. Betty Au. Also with us is LCSD's Head, Conservation, Mr. Edward Chair. So may I invite the Secretary to take us through the paper, please? Thank you. Members, I'm very pleased to be here talking through the topic to you with LCSD colleagues on the topic of preservation of Hong Kong's film heritage through the conservation projects and digitization, so as to maintain, of course, the film heritage. In 2009, the government announced that it will allocate $20 million to let the film archive in the coming 5 years preserve the original prints of films from decades ago. The film archive has hired more specialists and also commissioned film studios to provide film digitalization service. Progress is fine. The additional budget would increase the pace of digitization from 20 to 50 films a year by 2023-24. By the end of that year, the digitized films kept in the archive will rise from 210 to 460. In the past, people could not appreciate some rare films, but with the digitization, they could re-emerge on the silver screen. For example, films by Chen Boju and Guan Tukhing, Master Wong series, the Kung Fu Master Wong's film series, and also Bruce Lee's drama picture, and also the Cantonese opera genres by Bak Shih-sin and Yam Kin Fai will be reshown at the archive and letting the public appreciate rare old movies. And through public education and other activities, the Film Archive will promote rare old movies to local and overseas audiences so that more people will know about the history and culture of Hong Kong. The Film Archive staff has prepared a video to let members know about the process of digitization and film restoration. So I asked Mr. Edward Chair to brief us on that. Mr. Chair, please. Yes. The Cantonese opera genres by Yam Kin Fai and Bak Shih-sin are a number of more than 100 genres of precious films from decades ago that enjoy special status that will be preserved because they are based on scripts written by famous scriptwriters and directors. All the lead characters are famous Cantonese opera stars, and this pair, these Cantonese opera performers, they actually their rare films, they actually preserve the characteristics of Cantonese opera and also achieve the level of integration of literary film values. And the restoration process is based on the 35 based on the rare considerations, very careful considerations. We need to carry out a thorough check of the films, and depending on the amount of damage to the films, cleaning and restoration will be made to ensure that the films will be scanned to the best effect and providing the best images. And to avoid further damage to the films, we also have 2K scanning. And if there is any situation of film being damaged, we need to stop the scanning process because digitized image has to be based on celluloid films of various nature. So it takes efforts to adjust the color tones and the brightness. So we need to make sure that to deal with all the stains or all the problems that arise in the films, particularly in relation to, for example, the classic that I mentioned, the Cantonese opera classic that I mentioned, Butterfly and Red Pear Blossom, performed by the two top Cantonese opera stars, veteran stars. And we have to make sure that during the restoration process, for anyone who's not familiar with Hong Kong's film culture, particularly Cantonese opera films, there could be excessive restoration, and then some important elements could be destroyed. So therefore, we need to be careful, and there are constraints when commissioning the restoration work to overseas digitization firm. Therefore, for the rare films, we need to do it locally and internally within the archive to ensure that a safe and careful job is done. So let's take us through this video on the restoration process.
我哋今年適逢粵劇新圍10週年嘅時機，揀選咗一部館藏非常之重要嘅粵劇電影作為重點嘅修復。呢套電影就係《蝶影紅梨記》，係李鐵導演喺1959年將舞台版本搬上銀幕，亦都係我哋100套不可不看嘅電影裏邊唯一一套粵劇電影。
咁喺《蝶影紅梨記》呢個片目入邊咧，電影資料館就有唔少嘅素材嘅。先講佢嗰個底片同聲片啦，咁其實狀況就唔理想嘅。至於拷貝方面咧，就有幾個唔同嘅版本啦，有啲長有啲短。咁其中有3個狀況比較理想嘅，好幸運亦都係最長嘅。咁最長嗰個版本就係成為今次嘅主幹啦。亦都有2個比較短少少嘅版本，佢哋係雖然係黑白片，但係印咗喺彩色菲林度，所以佢哋嘅顏色就有啲奇怪嘅，係偏藍嘅。呢3個版本就係成為我哋今次修復嘅主要嘅素材啦。
咁選定咗一啲適合嘅物料之後呢，我哋會修復呢啲物料啦，然之後進行聲音同埋影像嘅掃描嘅。咁日本修復公司就係主要負責影像同埋聲音嘅修復啦，最後會印菲林作為一個保存嘅。佢哋亦都同我哋講，佢哋喺修復嘅過程裏邊呢，遇到3個主要嘅問題。咁第一個問題呢，就係因為今次我哋俾佢嘅數碼檔呢係由
It was made up from 3 copies, and there will be different projectors, so you will see a different quality. In the film, it takes a long time to adjust the quality, the contrast.
另外第二個
The second problem is that there are different stains on the picture frame caused by molds or droplets. Using automatic restoration software, there may be over restoration. A lot of the details will be over enhanced, so we use a lot of time to manually restore the film. The third difficulty is the marks on the various picture frames. Well, the original copy is very sharp, showing the grandeur of the costumes, changes of the colors in the sky. They would rather keep the flaw without affecting the details. The original material came from 3 projection copies. During screening, there will be marks, dusts, there will be vibrations and flashes. We get rid of all these problems and try to restore the original quality for comfort of the audience.
好，唔該晒。
Thank you. Is that the end of your presentation, or are you going to continue? That's the end of it. We'll be happy to take questions. First, Mr. Ray Chan. I support the $25 million funding allocation to restore the treasure of Hong Kong films through digitalization as well as restoration. It is a treasure trove of Hong Kong. Even if the government would not do it, we should pull funds together to do it ourselves. I'm glad to hear that the government is doing it. Do you know if there is any work done by the civic community? As you said, Butterfly and Red Pear Blossom is an important film. However, you've waited for a very long time before you restore it. The $20 million, how much will be spent on hardware? How much will be spent on increase in manpower? There is a limited pool of talented people with the expertise. It's not the case that if we give you $20 million, you'll be able to churn out double the amount of restoration. It says that, well, those with relevant experience, the number of people stand as about 20. They are in their 60s and 70s. If they leave the trade, there won't be anyone to take up the baton. I see under your proposal that there will be courses for film restoration. There will be new posts created to attract the younger generation to provide them with on-the-job training. Is it the case that they'll be recruited after completion of the courses? Will their skills be needed elsewhere? When I asked you about in-house work as well as outsourced work, you told us about difficulties in outsourcing the work. You can give us more information. But what about new posts and on-the-job training? Are there any entry requirements, or as long as they're willing to join, they will be given training to do the work? I'll defer to the LCSD. Thank you for the question. Using celluloid film to screen films is rare, save and except in some art houses. A lot of the film production companies use digitalization, so there is no incentive for film companies or the civic community to spend so much resources on digitalization of old films. We have the responsibility to preserve the important heritage of Hong Kong films, so we have the responsibility to digitalize these films. The member asked about the allocation of the $20 million. It includes additional manpower responsible for film inspection and repair work. There will be about $3.75 million. Another $11.5 million will be used to get film production companies to digitalize the films in phases. We'll also use about $5 million to procure a system to store digitalized films. There aren't many places that specializes in film restoration and digitalization. We'd like to provide courses to arouse the interest of youngsters, to give them the knowledge, to give youngsters the knowledge, the skills, and to attract them to join the trade. There will be on-the-job training. What about those posts with on-the-job training? Are there any entry requirements? What skills should they possess? Is 5 subjects of second level in, well, one is a science subject, the other one is a subject in chemistry. So they don't need relevant skills. There are no training courses, so we don't dare set down such requirements. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, first, a quick question. Digitalization of the Hong Kong Film Archive. What standard do you use? Previously, you used HD. Now you use 2K or 4K or what? A quick answer, please. We can now provide 2K, DCP, and TPX format. I strongly support preservation of Hong Kong heritage in the form of films. Before the inception of the Hong Kong Film Archive, I was doing something in this area. I was once a practitioner in the film industry. The company I worked for asked the China Film Archive to spend about a year or so to restore a large number of films. You now ask for a small amount of money. But you're not very efficient. You have to protect the oldest and films that are most worn out. No one uses celluloid film to make movies anymore. For newer films, say those produced in the 80s and 90s, a lot of film production companies still use them. Do you liaise with existing and operating companies to talk to them about digitalized films? There are some broadcasting companies that use 4K. They have their film collection. Some of them are stored in the film archive as well. You can make use of public-private partnership. You pay them consideration to procure digitalized films. Isn't that a more viable approach? Well, you train a batch of people. In 10 years' time, will there still be work for them? Because the number of celluloid film is limited. So what are you going to do with that difficulty? I think the current progress is not ideal. Well, apart from in-house digitalization, we also actively talk to film companies to donate digitalized films to us. Well, there are 210 digitalized films. 94 of them were donated to us. 116 of them were digitalized by us in-house. So you use 2K? Not 4K. In the long run, will there be a basic standard that you require? We now use 2K. 4K is just launched. There may be 8K or 16K in the future. Currently, we can only do 2K. We will improve our standard or specification in the future. You say that you have produced 100 films or so, but there are many more in the market. Have you conducted any assessment? What is will it be more cost effective to procure elsewhere? Of course. You need to use in-house restoration and digitalization for very old and worn-out films, but there are newer ones that can be that are already digitalized and can be procured by paying a sum. We'll actively talk to the trade. If they can help us, we would like to use leverage on their help to speed the progress up. But for the trade, there may not be any commercial incentive for them to digitalize their work, so we have to take it up ourselves. Mr. Vincent Chang, thank you. I didn't really quite understand when Mr. Ray Chen asked why it's not done by the community. You said there is no incentive. Would there be any incentive that you provide to them? You now ask for 20 million. And for the 4 to 5 years, you can channel another 200 films, so each will cost about $100,000. That's only a ballpark figure. That's my understanding. At the same time, there are 4,000 or so celluloid film, and you will only be able to cover 200. You're going to spend 20 years to do it, or what? So in the long run, what plan do you have in mind? Once they are restored, you're going to store them, put them aside, or once they are digitalized, you'll be able to screen them for public enjoyment. Can you give us more information? What will be the outcome? Thank you. Well, I did not have a chance to explain in detail about the difficulties or inadequacies of outsourcing it. Currently, there is no contractor that provides a specialized service, and there is a limited demand for digitalization. And there are only 2 digitalization workshops locally and 3 overseas. They can only churn out 30 films every year. For overseas workshop, they are mostly located in areas where there is a blooming film industry. So they do most of the work for their own country. They only provide service outside with their spare capacity. When we transport films to and back these workshops, there will be risks. And they charge a very hefty price, as Mr. Chang has worked it out. If there is any damage or loss, it will be irreversible. So we don't incline to using outsourced contractors. If we used existing resources, we can churn out 20 films. With the 20 million in the coming 5 years, we can increase it to 50 films. So our efficiency is increased by 2.5 times, and we have cut the digitalization time required by half. As the classic Butterfly and Red Pear Blossom, for restored and digitalized films, they will be screened. For the first 30 films sold copies using the $20 million in year 2020 and 21, they will be screened in the Hong Kong Film Archive. We're actively talking to film companies to see if these films can be stored in our resource center for public enjoyment. If there are overseas or local organizations that would like to screen these films, we can also loan them for screening.
That is, if I don't digitize it, I cannot play the film, the celluloid film outside. Yes, because there are a few places showing celluloid films. Only in places that specialize or show artistic films can play those films, like Art Center and Science Museum. But how to arrange the order? There's so many films that need to be digitized. How would you select which one should be digitized first? That's that we'll choose the rare films from the 30s and 40s with their own composite films first, and also we need to have the films of the right material first, which means that they could be at risk of being damaged more. And there are also 100 Hong Kong films which are not to be missed that will be given priority as well. And if we only have, and for films we only have 1 copy of, then that would be also a reason for being given priority. Okay, next round. Xiu Ka-chun, thank you. The film archive in preserving films. Besides hardware that is needed, like digitization, restoration work, can you also make public your criteria? Because some people have told me that they don't know in preserving films which ones will be chosen for preservation. And also people have asked, how can the public have access to the preserved films, the important cultural heritage? So it's about the openness of the film archive, and also in choosing films. There are some less popular ones like documentary or cult films. Would they be included for preservation? And also in the recent few years, there's a very political film, 10 Year. Will that be chosen for preservation? Because it's not just about the technical side. We are talking about heritage to be kept. Basically, for the film archive, its positioning is to preserve Hong Kong films. Therefore, we would not choose well, we can choose all kinds of films. That is, in the past century, Hong Kong produced more than 10,000 films. All of them, indeed, will be kept because we're not going to assess which one is of high quality or what content is about. We will not differentiate between them on the basis of content. As long as they're produced in Hong Kong, we will preserve them. As for public access, every year Film Archive has 160 film screenings, 20 seminars, 40 post-screening discussion. There will also be thematic exhibitions. In the past 3 years, we've done 33 thematic exhibitions. We also publish repaired film CDs for people to purchase for their own collection. We also issue books, physical books and e-books. And besides the showing of films, the public, if they want to, in their spare time, come to enjoy visits of a resource center, they're welcome, and they can choose the films that they like at the resource center. And also through local and overseas film organizations and film festivals, we can provide our films on loan to them to show to overseas audience. Yeah, so you just mentioned whether it's documentary, cult film, or politically sensitive film like 10 years, they will all be preserved, right? Thank you. Yes. Any other questions? If not, okay, I have a few questions before the second round. This is a very meaningful application for funding. $20 million is not a lot. So as other members, I would think that if you need more money and that could digitize more films, we are willing to approve the funding request. But more funding doesn't mean, however, that we have the professional talent needed. Just then you said that you could open up some courses. I agree that on this meaningful project, there should be more interactions to let Hong Kong films be passed on to future generations. People can know more about past films. But still, the job prospects for the film technicians are also important. People may have the passion to do the restoration and sign up for a course. And as Mr. Ma said, okay, once the 4,000 films are restored, there may not be any work for them. So once people have finished the preservation courses, would the government try to absorb some talents who've done a course or provide them with jobs? You need to provide some sort of guarantee so as to encourage people to take up the courses. I would like to know more about it. Yes. For the films, we have 4,000 celluloid films, but for Hong Kong produced films, they number more than 10,000. We are continuing to expand our collection. Some companies have expressed their willingness to donate films to us, but because of limited storage space and the speed of our digitization, film companies have kept their films in their own companies. Every year, we're going to add to our celluloid film collection. And for the trained technicians in the future, they can work not just in our film archive, but also they can work overseas to take part in the post-production work of film companies, to do digitization or preservation work. We hope that the graduates can actually integrate the digitization and the celluloid film production skills. But would the government provide any jobs? Will there be openings within the government for the film technicians? In our film archive, there are 3 assistant curators and 8 lab technicians and 4 outsourced technicians. As I said, part of them actually are being supported by the latest fund. If there's more funding available, we will be able to provide more positions to absorb more young talents. Okay, second round. Ma Fong Kwok first. Thank you, Chairman. I was saying, expressing my views then earlier. I also like to find out more about there's the National Archive in China, Film Archive. the Film Archive in Hong Kong. Are you collaborating in any way with the National Archive in China? Is there any way you can get support from them or collaborate with them? Do you have plans for collaborations? I know that the National Archive has kept films, Hong Kong films, that they expect to even longer time ago. So are you considering about copying those films and keeping them in Hong Kong? And also cost effectiveness. I was saying that the newer films, like films from the 80s and 90s, the earlier you preserve them, the lower the cost involved. Say $40,000, $50,000 can allow you to copy those films from those eras with the right colors. I'm not talking about separating the films from the soundtracks, but one integrated product with two soundtracks. That is of low cost but high value. So that's one way you can consider. And then, of course, you need to preserve age-old films in very poor state. You can actually achieve better cost effectiveness by doing both things at the same time. So your funding application now is only for one side of preservation, but not the other side, as I just mentioned. So for the seriously damaged films, it may take you $400,000, $500,000 to do it, and takes months. But if you are preserving newer films, rarely damaged films, it will only take you or cost you like $40,000, $50,000 and done in a week's time, and that would really reduces the time needed and create better cost of effectiveness. And I also heard some views, I don't know whether true or not, in outsourcing the work concern. The tender invitation work and the conditions actually is closely out of touch with what is happening in the industry. So can the government elaborate on that? Is there a chance that, or is it possible that even if you invite tenders, nobody might come forward? Is that possible? Assistant Director, please. Thank you for your views. In terms of collaboration with China, in actually the Shanghai Film Museum, Shanghai Film Archive, lately we have signed MOU with them. So we're going to discuss further with them collaborations or exchanges in film restoration and exchanges. Yes, you're right. We can actually collaborate more with our counterparts in the mainland. There's definitely room for that. And strategy-wise, whether we should not just focus on films in poor state, but we can also focus on newer films for preservation, how we're going to strike a balance. How we strike balance is, as I said, because of the humid weather in Hong Kong, and then the films could be damaged easily to an irreversible state. So therefore, we are giving priority to those films before they become totally damaged. We want to preserve them. And at the same time, as members said, whether we should start with the easier to work on films first, we can consider that as well. As for inviting tenders, we haven't faced any difficulties in getting tenders. Okay, next one, Ray Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask you about for films preserved with public money, that is digitized films. Copyrights. Who has the copyright of them? You said that there may be few incentives for the people, the private sector, to do them, but the incentive for them is for them to preserve films and then to distribute them for sale and also to play the film in various platforms. So as you said, the Cantonese Opera Classic, Butterfly and Red Pear Blossom, I'm sure once they are preserved, people will buy the copies. So who has the copyright then of the preserved films? Does the Film Archive has the ownership, and then it's up to the archive to play them in public? I'm just wondering where there's any room for some sort of cooperation, that is once films are preserved, there can be more platforms for the films to be produced, turned into CDs, or to be available for loan and so forth? Okay, I'll hand over to my colleague. When a donor donated a copy to us, that will be part of our collection. But every time, if we want to distribute them or play them, we need to consult the donors because the donor has the right. In the past, there are preserved films which we turn into Blu-ray or DVD. And then we would issue publications for the public to make purchases so as to promote our preserved films. Thank you. Any members have other questions? If not, then I think we all support this item, right? Ma Fong Kwok? Chairman, well, I still have other follow-up questions. Just then, we're talking about ownership, and you said that some discs, after they've been preserved, they would be sold to the public. On what basis, conditions do you think that a film can be sold? Or is it that you have to get the authorization from the copyright owner? Or has the disc concerns passed the copyright period or what? Yes, we need to get the, well, for the preserved films and for films that have been selected for promotion and for films with heritage value, after preservation is done, we would get the consent or copyright from the film owner for publication. For the preserved films, we would turn them into DVDs, or later we even produce Blu-ray versions. And then we also provide some descriptions, information to describe the films as one package. Yes, I'm just concerned about the copyright issues. So you have the authorization, then you can from the owner, then there's no problem. But if the disc concern has ownership period has expired or copyright period has expired, then for the preserved films, would the archive possess copyright over the preserved titles?
Yes, we will own the copyright of restored films. If the copyright owner uses the restored version, they will have to get authorization or license from you. Yes. If there are no more questions, thank you. Any other business? If there are no other businesses, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.